Aryna, it has raised the whole question again of this ongoing debate about trans athletes in women's sport, because obviously it highlights the physical disparity between men and women. Martina Navratilova, a former number one, obviously like yourself, says it's wrong for the Women's Tennis Association to allow trans women to compete in its events. Do you agree with that?
Well, that's a tricky question. I have nothing to do against them, but I feel like they still got huge advantage over the woman, and I think it's just not fair to a woman to basically face like the biologically man, and then it's it's not fair. Like the woman been working the whole life to reach her limit, and then she has to face like a man, like which biologically much stronger. So for me, I don't agree with this kind of stuff in sport.
Aryna Sabalenka's recent remarks have ignited a fervent discussion across the athletic community, unexpectedly drawing Brittney Griner into the heart of the matter. What began as a tennis player's perspective on transgender athletes has spiraled into a complex WNBA predicament, yielding repercussions far beyond initial predictions. The scope of this issue now transcends its origins in tennis, encompassing basketball, principles of equity, and the authority over regulations. Prior to delving deeper, a fundamental question emerges. Should athletes from one discipline truly weigh in on policy matters concerning entirely distinct professional organizations? Your insights on this unfolding inter-sport entanglement are welcome.
Men competing against women in elite sport, the biologically male body is bigger, stronger and faster than the female physiology, and we've only recently been cowed into pretending otherwise because of a noisy minority of radical wokies. But long before this debate became toxic and, in my view, frankly insane, there was a far more jovial contest over the sporting supremacy of the genders. It was called the Battle of the Sexes, with female tennis superstars taking on men.
All right, we must clarify the peculiar circumstances currently unfolding. Aryna Sabalenka, a professional tennis player, shared her views on transgender athletes participating in women's sports. Her remarks, made during an interview with Piers Morgan, were specifically focused on tennis regulations. However, these statements have, through unexpected channels, generated significant contention within the WNBA, reportedly causing distress for Brittney Griner. It's crucial to establish the precise details, as online interpretations often diverge from the original context. Sabalenka's discussion with Morgan was part of her promotion for an upcoming exhibition match against Nick Kyrgios. Morgan, known for his probing questions, inquired about transgender athletes in women's tennis. Sabalenka conveyed that while she holds no prejudice against transgender individuals, she perceives inherent biological advantages that challenge fair competition. She articulated her conviction that it is unjust for women to contend with individuals possessing male biological traits in professional athletics.
Men she could beat. And I think she said she wouldn't beat anyone in the top 800. I think she said something like that. When you look at the men's game and you look at, say, the top 1,000 players, how many do you think you could beat? I mean, at what level would you fancy your chances against a man in say, a three-set competition?
Well, to be honest, I think if we play like full court, full rules, yeah, it will be really tough for me to compete against guys. I mean, physically they're much stronger. Speed, power of the balls, everything is much stronger. So it's tough to compete. But in these conditions, I feel like we're having right now here, like 9% smaller court. I feel like, okay, maybe at least I have a bit like higher chance to compete and to see like if I.
The divergence from reality becomes particularly striking at this point. Sabalenka made no reference to the WNBA, basketball, or Brittney Griner during her comments. Nevertheless, internet users, social media advocates, and several news sources independently established connections, fabricating a narrative suggesting Sabalenka's purported insistence on prohibiting transgender players from participating in the WNBA. This manufactured interpretation has circulated widely.
It has raised the whole question again of this ongoing debate about trans athletes in women's sport, because obviously it highlights the physical disparity between men and women. Martina Navratilova, a former number one, obviously like yourself, says it's wrong for the Women's Tennis Association to allow trans women to compete in its events. Do you agree with her?
Well, that's a tricky question. I have nothing to do against them, but I feel like they still got huge advantage over the woman, and I think it's just not fair to a woman to basically face like the biologically man, and then it's it's not fair. Like the woman been working the whole life to reach her limit, and then she has to face like a man, like which biologically much stronger. So for me, I don't agree with this kind of stuff in sport.
To state it unequivocally, Sabalenka's discourse pertains solely to tennis governance. As a professional tennis athlete, she possesses absolutely no jurisdiction concerning WNBA regulations. She is not affiliated with any WNBA committee, nor does she hold ownership of a WNBA franchise. It is highly improbable she could identify a significant portion of the league's roster. Despite this, her statements have somehow been distorted into an assertion that Sabalenka demands WNBA ban trans players, an unequivocally inaccurate representation.
If you're honest,
like a regular
Aryna,
match against the guy.
there's obviously a physical advantage for men, but if you're honest, do you think you would beat would you beat any man in the top 1,000 men, do you think, under normal conditions?
For sure.
I think some of them maybe I would be able to win. Yeah. Like if there's the guy that doesn't have that powerful serve, for example, and yeah, I think I could get a couple wins.
The narrative develops a new dimension at this juncture. Brittney Griner, a leading figure in the WNBA and a member of the LGBTQ community, is reportedly disturbed by the escalating discourse surrounding transgender athletes in female competitions. Her apprehension is indeed comprehensible. When notable sports figures articulate views on biological advantages and competitive equity, it instigates a significant cultural shift influencing the entirety of women's athletics, rather than being confined to a single sport like tennis.
Good morning, Brittney. I'm Bill Roden from ESPN and Skate. It's really great to see you. It's good to know the prayers have been answered. Good question. You've always represented so much throughout your entire career about access and being able to do stuff. And I hate to put one more thing on your plate, but there are a number of states who are aggressively moving to prevent transgender athletes playing. And I was wondering, again, I hate to put one more thing on your plate, but in terms of on your radar, where is that? You're going to have a tremendous platform, but where is that going to be on your radar in terms of advocating for, athletes, all athletes, transgender athletes, to be able to play?
Oh, I mean that ranks high on the list of things that I'll be fighting for and speaking up against. Everyone deserves the right to play. Everyone deserves the right to come here, sit in these seats and feel safe and not feel like there's a threat or they can't be who they are or like it's just all eyes on them. I think it's a crime, honestly, to separate someone for any reason. So I definitely will be speaking up against that legislation and those laws that are trying.
Griner's past experiences lend a distinct gravity to the situation. Her prior detention in Russia on drug-related charges, a situation that escalated into international political discourse before her eventual release via prisoner exchange, saw her under intense public scrutiny. Throughout her career, her physical appearance, identity, and standing within women's basketball have consistently been questioned. An additional controversy concerning biological advantages in women's sports is an unwanted burden. Let's delve into Sabalenka's precise statements, as they are pivotal. She conveyed to Piers Morgan that women dedicate their lives to reaching peak physical performance, deeming it inequitable to then compete against individuals with inherent male biological traits. She asserted that even with testosterone suppression and other stipulations, the physiological benefits accrued from male puberty persist. Nick Kyrgios, present during the interview, unequivocally endorsed her perspective, stating she articulated the issue perfectly. Thus, a tennis-centric discussion between two players has rapidly evolved into a broader evaluation of the entire landscape of women's sports. The WTA, the governing body for women's tennis, currently permits transgender women to compete, provided they have identified as female for a minimum of 4 years, maintain testosterone levels below 2.5 nanomoles per liter for 2 years, and consented to regular monitoring. The WTA's medical administration retains discretion to modify these criteria individually. While seemingly judicious on paper, Sabalenka and others contend that testosterone levels represent only one facet of a larger biological reality. The often avoided biological truth, due to its politicized nature, is that males who undergo puberty develop larger cardiac systems, increased lung capacity, greater bone density, distinct hip structures, and significantly more muscle mass compared to female. Reducing testosterone does not erase over a decade of male hormonal development. These advantages remain permanent. Yet, the WNBA currently has no openly transgender athlete competing in its league. Why then does this discussion loom over it? Because the public stance of a prominent figure like Sabalenka sends reverberations throughout all women's sports. Suddenly, organizations are compelled to review their own policies, questioning their fairness to biological women versus potential discrimination towards transgender athletes. Brittney Griner's involvement is particularly unfortunate given she is not transgender. However, due to her masculine presentation, her association with the LGBTQ community, and the history of disparaging comments regarding her appearance, this dialogue resonates deeply with her. Her womanhood has been baselessly and offensively challenged throughout her career. The irony is stark. Sabalenka discusses actual policy relating to transgender athletes, yet Griner, a cisgender woman, bears the collateral impact because historical biases persist against female athletes who defy conventional feminine stereotype. This, though distinct from the transgender debate, is conflated in public discourse. Examining the actions of various sports federations reveals significant movement. In 2024, the Lawn Tennis Association in the UK prohibited transgender women from national and inter-club female competition. Numerous other sports bodies have adopted analogous measures, barring individuals who experienced male puberty from elite female categories. Swimming's Leah Thomas case, where a former male swimmer achieved NCAA championships after transitioning, became emblematic of the debate. Weightlifting, cycling, and track and field have encountered similar scenarios, but for basketball, the WNBA has not yet faced a public incident of this nature, with no high-profile transgender athlete dominating the league. The current apprehension stems from observing developments in other sports and seeking proactive measures. Transgender advocacy groups assert that exclusion constitutes discrimination, arguing that transgender women are women who should be permitted to compete in women's sport. They highlight that not all transgender women exhibit physical dominance, that transition effects vary, and that sweeping bans are unjust. The counter-argument, aligning with Sabalenka's stance, posits that distinct male and female sports categories exist precisely due to biological differences. If these biological distinctions are irrelevant, the rationale for separate categories collapses, suggesting a single, combined competitive field. This is not the practice, as the anticipated outcome, male dominance across most professional sports, is widely understood. Critics of transgender inclusion specifically cite physiological advantages, superior muscle mass, bone density, lung capacity, heart size, and limb length ratios, all products of male puberty that confer lasting benefits post-transition. They argue that sports uniquely necessitate acknowledging biology, given competition is measured by minute increments. Martina Navratilova's position offers a compelling perspective. An 18-time Grand Slam champion and a pioneer for gay rights, Navratilova has long been an LGBTQ icon. She has vociferously advocated for restricting transgender women from women's sports, arguing it compromises fairness, safety, and the integrity of women's athletic achievements. Navratilova's stance, from someone who championed LGBTQ rights early on, underscores the profound profound complexity of this issue, moving beyond simple bigot versus progressive binaries to reveal divergent views even among LGBTQ proponents. Conversely, Billie Jean King, another tennis legend and LGBTQ figure, holds a differing view, publicly framing transgender exclusion as discriminatory. This illustrates significant disagreement even within the same generation of tennis players who fought for women's and LGBTQ rights. Further complicating matters for Brittney Griner is her career-long experience with gender questioning, enduring intrusive comments, baseless theories, and constant scrutiny of her physique. The current widespread discussion on biological advantages in women's sports, while not directly about her, invariably shapes public perception of her. The WNBA has maintained a notable silence, issuing no statements regarding Sabalenka's comments, nor public policy update. They likely hope the issue dissipates without requiring a definitive stance that could alienate a segment of their fan base. Nevertheless, addressing it remains inevitable. Other leagues are revising policies, federations are conducting research. The conversation will persist despite its discomfort. Sabalenka's comments have also drawn comparisons to Marta Kostyuk's claims. Kostyuk, a Ukrainian tennis player, contended that she faced an inherent disadvantage against players like Sabalenka and Iga Swiatek due to their naturally higher testosterone levels, essentially arguing for unfair biological variations among cisgender women. Sabalenka swiftly dismissed this, labeling it an excuse and noting Kostyuk's own considerable strength. Sabalenka's assessment is accurate. Biological variations are intrinsic to any category. Some women are naturally taller, stronger, faster, a fact of genetics and sport. The central question, however, is whether these are variations within a category or variations that fundamentally break the category itself. Opponents of transgender women in women's sports contend that male biology constitutes not a variation within the female category, but a distinct category altogether, justifying their historical separation. The battle of the sexes aspect of Sabalenka's promotion is also pertinent. She is set to face Nick Kyrgios, a male player. Such exhibition matches, including Serena Williams versus Karsten Brosch and Billie Jean King versus Bobby Riggs, consistently demonstrate a core principle. Male and female athletes operate at different physical performance ceilings. Serena Williams, arguably the preeminent female tennis player, estimated she'd rank around 700th on the men's tour. Her decisive loss to Brosch, a men's player ranked about 300th, was not a slight against her exceptional talent, but a demonstration of biological realities. Therefore, Sabalenka's comments on biological advantages are not unfounded. They are substantiated and explain the existence of separate competitive divisions. This leaves Brittney Griner and other WNBA players in a precarious position, observing other sports modify policies, watching high-profile athletes voice opinions, and contemplating their league's future direction. Griner's concerns are entirely valid, not because she is transgender, but because this conversation impacts the perception of all female athletes, particularly those who diverge from conventional feminine ideals. Scrutiny of biological advantages, implementation of testing, and delineating who qualifies as a real woman in sports ultimately affects every participant. This issue lacks simple resolutions. Satisfying all parties is impossible. Allowing transgender women to compete invites claims of unfairness from biological women, while disallowing them prompts accusations of discrimination. No policy will appease everyone. Sports federations confront an intractable dilemma, balancing inclusion, fairness, safety, and public perception. The WTA, swimming, and track and field are all grappling with this, and the WNBA will eventually have to as well. Sabalenka's outspokenness has undeniably propelled this dialogue into the public sphere. Regardless of one's agreement with her, she has raised critical questions about the adequacy of existing policies. She articulates what many athletes privately contemplate but fear to express publicly, anticipating severe backlash. And indeed, the backlash is potent. Any questioning of transgender inclusion often leads to accusations of bigotry, hate, or being on the wrong side of history. Sabalenka, however, appears unfazed, steadfast in her convictions. Nick Kyrgios's endorsement likely provided reinforcement. A male athlete's acknowledgement of these biological advantages lends credibility, as female voices alone are often dismissed as threatened or insecure. When men also recognize these physiological differences, it becomes harder to disregard. The coming months promise further development. More athletes are speaking out, federations are adapting policies, studies are underway, and leagues like the WNBA will be forced to define their stances. For Brittney Griner, this must feel like another chapter in a relentless ordeal of scrutiny and judgments. Though not directly involved in the transgender debate, she is involuntarily drawn into it due to societal biases against female athletes with unconventional presentation. Sabalenka initiated this discussion within tennis, but its ramifications extend to basketball, swimming, track, cycling, and all other women's sports. Such is the influence of prominent athletes. Whether the WNBA will enact policy changes, whether Brittney Griner will publicly address the situation, and whether this conversation continues to dominate sports news are yet to be seen. However, one certainty remains: this debate will not recede. The inquiries regarding fairness, biology, inclusion, and discrimination will only intensify. Consequently, a tennis player's remarks have paradoxically triggered a WNBA crisis, leaving all parties striving to ascertain the path forward. Brittney Griner did not seek involvement in this discourse, yet she finds herself inextricably linked. If this analysis has illuminated the contemporary complexities of sports, please engage and subscribe for further content.